Hi, everybody. This is SJ Thomason with Christian-apologist.com, where truth matters. And I'm really excited today because I'm here with a fellow Catholic. She calls herself Everyday Catholic Gina. And Gina and I are going to discuss a few things. We're going to talk about the sacraments, the 7 sacraments of Catholicism. We're going to talk about how she came to Catholicism, what brought her into the fullness of the church, and maybe how she was raised. Was she raised? I actually don't know the answer to this. I don't know what if she was raised in a Christian faith or what it is. So I'm just going to turn it over to Gina to share the good news with us. So Gina, tell us about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me on. And I am a cradle Catholic. And my mom, very devout, my dad as well, but my mom more especially. And I remember going to church and having to be dragged to church by my parents. And my mom, I think just kind of, she's like, well, you guys need at around 15, you need to make a decision. And I'm like, I'm not doing that, because I was very secular. That's how I wanted to be. And I did a lot of like journeying. I mean, I looked into different Christian faiths. I looked into kind of, what do you call them? The more spiritual, like new agey type things. And none of it was fulfilling. Everything seemed pretty shallow. And my husband, I married a good Catholic boy, and it was really important for him that I come into the faith. And I did it really reluctantly until about 6 years ago. And, something hit me. It was kind of an urgent thing. And I came back, and one of the first things, which is why I like to talk about, penance and reconciliation and confession, is because that's what really, really brought me in. And when I did it, I was really nervous, and I still get nervous to this day, but I was really nervous, and it was one of the most healing things that I ever did. And I think that, I know that's why the church has set it up as one of the healing sacraments, that and anointing of the sick. And one of the main things that I want to talk about, after we, kind of go over all of them, is how we are afraid, but God is with us, and Jesus is love. And, I think some of us, like myself at one point, is just too afraid to accept that. So that's when I come back. And ever since then, I've gotten involved with the church. I just moved from one state to another. And the last state I lived in, I was very involved. I did lecturing. I was a Eucharist minister. And so just, kind of, anyways, and here I am.
that is, I love it. So I think because I'm a cradle Catholic too, so I can completely relate. And I also was into the spiritual stuff. I thought the Eastern stuff was more exotic, and I thought Catholicism was boring and a default. And I thought, oh, this isn't even. I didn't even look into the resurrection evidence when I was young. I just didn't even think to. It was so silly. But yeah, so today is the really good thing. It's a feast of baptism, so it's a pretty special day. So maybe we'll start to tell everybody. If you're a Christian, you undoubtedly believe in baptism. I mean, most Christians, as far as I know, believe that you should be baptized and it regenerates you. And there's a difference. Some Christians think that you should do it later, like Baptists tend to think that it can take place once you can profess your own faith in Jesus. And then Catholics and Lutherans tend to do it very early on with infant baptism, because they feel like it's regeneration of souls and that it's a way to protect kids. Because it actually, when you're born, you're sort of born into original sin. So you're going to have this bondage of like hell. And so you want to free yourselves and free your children from that. And that's what baptism does. And so I know you were baptized a Catholic. And then did you go through the first communion as a Catholic too?
Oh, yeah. I've done all of them now. I did so I didn't get my confirmation until I was an older person, like maybe 10, 15 years ago. And then, and that was part of my husband and I getting married in the church. So, but yeah, baptized as a baby, just, regular, did that. I went to catechism as a little kid, and I just, I didn't pay attention. I really just, that's not what it was about for me. it's good to be home.
Yeah, I didn't either. In fact, it was terrible because I spent many years I married a Lutheran. He's still Lutheran, and we had to get convalidated in the Catholic Church. But I also, what also happened was then I went through the Baptist faith for like 10 years. And I was thinking, oh, the Catholics, they don't know any of this stuff. I felt sorry for the Catholics. I thought they didn't know anything. And then I started studying it. And I'm like, wait a second, why am I following what the heretics said hundreds of years ago instead of what the saints said? So
I actually have something to say on that point. I did, when I was little, grew up in a Bible Belt state, and I was told how bad and how evil the Catholic Church is. And I really bought into that. And I think a lot of us, when we're younger and we're more vulnerable, we don't have like a really strong within ourselves, just kind of feel like, yeah, it's evil, it's bad. And the Catholic Church has done a lot of, the priest and the clergy has done stuff, but, and I'm not, but there's humans in the church. So that's what it is. But the way it's set up is perfect. And Jesus said this, hell will not prevail, and it'll be here till the end of time. So, or until he returns. And when I started really studying it, and I have a bunch of YouTubers that I really like to watch, and they, the more I learn about the faith and the church and the 2,000-year history, the more in love I fall and with Jesus and the church and my fellow Catholics and Christians that have a different opinion. I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you said YouTubers, because I think you and I connected because I was reviewing, if I recall it correctly, I was reviewing William Albrecht's one of his debates.
He's amazing.
I just found him a couple of weeks ago and I started binge watching his stuff.
Oh,
so is he one of the YouTubers you'd recommend?
Oh, yes. William Albrecht. I do like Divine Mercy Apologetics.
Oh, yeah.
William is so deep in, he is a theologian, and he goes into a lot of the Mariology, and he makes it clear, and then he talks about the history, and it's just beautiful. And then Divine Mercy, he's the same. He really talks a lot about the papacy, but also he's doing a series right now on heretics, which I love. No, that's it's James. It's Divine Mercy Apologetics.
Oh, I don't even know if I know that one. So James, it's called Divine Mercy Apologetics.
Yes, and his name is James. Yeah, he's the one that wears the mask, if you've seen that.
Oh, I haven't. I'm going to have to go find that.
Yeah.
So who else do you recommend? So Divine Mercy Apologetics.
Well, I like to watch Father Mike Schmidt too. I like to watch all of his, and been following along on the Bible in a Year and the Catechism in a Year, which and come to think about it, that's kind of what really, I was like, I didn't know that about the Catechism. And then I would look it up and I'm like, wow, it's been there the whole time. So yeah, I mean them. Oh, I like to watch Sam Shamoon. He's, sometimes controversial, but that man knows his Bible, and he knows how to
him too.
Yes, I love him. He's a character. So yeah, I recommend him. Man, there's so many. Chris Wagner, he's a scholastic. I can't remember. I like to listen to him. So yeah, anyways.
Yeah, very good channel.
Yeah,
no, I definitely.
We have a really big community, I'm noticing, and I never knew that. So yeah.
Yeah, I reached out to William Albrecht to see if I can get him to come on my channel. He said yes in the comments, and then he gave me an email address. So I'm just waiting to hear back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to have. I mean, it'd be so fun. And I reached out to. There's another guy, Gary Machuda. Have you heard of him?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Gary. Yeah, Apocrypha Apocalypse. Yeah, and he's really into the Yes, I do. I'm actually a mod for Gary Machuda and for William and Divine Mercy. So, and that's not why I'm recommending them, but I think because I'm always on their, live streams. That's so yeah. But
yeah, no, that's great. I'm a mod for Sam Shamoon.
You are? Yeah. I didn't know that.
So, yeah, it's funny. I mean, I've known him for a while because I used to follow him he was a Calvinist years ago, and I was kind of, as I said, I was a Baptist for a while there. And so it was funny because when I announced in 2022 that I was reverting to Catholicism, he jumped in there right away and he's like, "Go, sister." And I was like, wait a second, Sam, is he not anymore a Calvinist? And so it was funny.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too, because I love watching the debates, but sometimes I think it does get a little bit rough in the comment sections and things like that. And I know, like, like that, like Sam Shamoon was a Calvinist, and I'm not real clear, but I know that William came into the faith, and now there's some of the biggest advocates and the greatest teachers, currently. And I'm like, so just, I got to just pray for people, just like I would want them to pray for me. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of circles us back to this idea of the reconciliation. So I just
Yeah.
said we had the first thing was baptism. The second one both of us have had is communion, when we both had when we were young. And
Mhm.
Catholics believe that the body and blood is transformed. In other words, the bread and the wine transubstantiated into the actual body and blood of Jesus. And so when you take in the Eucharist, you're actually really bringing in the bread and body of Jesus into your soul. And so it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I heard 70% of Catholics don't believe that, though. Do you believe that?
I definitely do. And also too, I was thinking about, different aspects of each of the sacraments, I was planning on doing this. And I was thinking about how the Eucharist brings us into union, like with Jesus. And it's the closest that we can be to Jesus while we're here on earth. We're partaking in his body and blood, and it is spiritual nourishment. And it gives us the strength. It's the medicine, right? So, and I understand what you're saying about transubstantiation. I am not real articulate when explaining to people that the accidents are still the bread and wine. I'm still learning that type of thing. But I do believe that it is all of the sacraments, I think, kind of point towards the Holy Eucharist, right? It opens us up to receiving that beautiful gift that Jesus, left for us here. It's just, it is. Yeah. And the other thing too, with like confession, or even if we start with baptism, we can't partake into the Eucharist unless we've been baptized. And then once we do our, first confession, and then we take the Eucharist, and just, I believe what you believe and that's what the church teaches, and it's true. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So both of us we both went, the only ones that we're not going to have yet, like obviously you and I aren't going to go through holy orders,
right?
That's for priests. And so,
Right.
And I do believe the apostolic succession. I think that's a beautiful thing. The Catholic Church told me on that. And I love the idea of laying down hands. And I think that's very biblical.
Yes.
And then there's the other one we haven't, at least I haven't had, I don't know, anointing of the sick. I mean, usually you get that at the very end of your life, and maybe you're in hospice or something. And so that also is pretty reconciling. And then holy matrimony, both of us have gone through. So we both have that. But now let's go back to reconciliation, because I think that's, like you said, that's, some people don't want to do it. Why do you think people don't want to do that?
Because we're, a lot of us, especially those of us that grew up Catholic and went away from the church. And I'm speaking from my own experience, because first of all, I didn't believe that God loved me. I really didn't believe that I was a child of God. I didn't have that belief. And I was scared. And then the other thing too is I'm like, why do I have to confess to a priest? That was my, real feelings on it. And when I, to get ready to, get married in the church with my husband, I went into RCIA for adults, to just, because I didn't want to go into this lightly. And even at that point, when I was learning about everything, I was still afraid. I mean, and when I went to confession, sometimes I would hold things back. And it's like, because there's no forgiveness for me, but that's not true. So, and that's something I think is really important for not just people that are, that are outside of the Catholic faith, and they're like, they think it's, well, why do you have to do that? It's important for those of us who have gone away from the faith to go back to that to understanding that these are all gifts. These sacraments are so perfect and they lead us closer to God, each and every single one of them. And I was thinking, we don't go through the anointing of the sick until we pass away, and we don't get holy orders, but they still benefit us. The holy orders benefit us because you got the clergy that is going to administer the sacraments. So, but yeah, I think that the confirmation, most of us are afraid of it because we feel like we're not forgivable, and we are. And what Jesus came here, not for, he came here for us, the sinful, the sick. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even just talk about sort of the middleman, a lot of people say, well, why should I mean, I hear that even in my own family, I'll admit it, because I'm married to a Lutheran, like I said, and his whole side of the family is pretty stout Lutherans, and I'm not going to change them at least yet.
Maybe.
But I can see, they always say, why should I have to why can't I go to the big guy myself? And I listen to people like Father Mark Beard, who tragically passed away, but I know he's in heaven. But I listen to people like him, and he's like, where in the Bible does Jesus say you can go to the big guy? There's always an intermediary. Like there's always one. It said, confess your sins to one another, and confess and there's another one that says, it gives the rights to forgive and stuff, like what Peter with the keys and all that kind of stuff, whatever you bind in earth, bound in heaven, all this kind of stuff they gave them the rights to do a lot of these sacraments. And so we kind of got to take that seriously. And so,
yes. Yeah. I mean, Jesus is perfect, and he instituted these, and that was the other thing. This is the new, like he says, I didn't come here to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And that was something else that when I was doing some meditation and contemplation, the whole, what I was telling you about, and I don't have it memorized because I'm not one of those that can memorize things real easily. But where is it? When I was reading, it's the one I was talking about, Matthew. What is it? Matthew.
Were you saying the Beatitudes?
The Beatitudes, but then after that, where it talks about, every law will remain in effect until the end. And he talks about, they told you not to, kill your brother, but he says, I say to you, not even to be angry with your brother.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, that's kind of a preventative measure, and people are like, well, that's, he made it more, like, he didn't get rid of it. He made it more, strict in a sense, but it helps us because you start getting angry with your brother and you start like thinking these bad thoughts. It wounds you, not so much them, but you prevent it by going, like, if I'm angry with this person, talking to them, or going to a priest and saying, I've been really upset with this person and I'm just angry. And this way it stops you, you stop and you pray for them rather. So I know that's what I did, when I'm angry with somebody. And
yeah, it's like free therapy. I mean, it's really, some people like go to a psychiatrist. Why should you go to, you can go to your priest and you just kind of unload and say hello, kind of gives you a few good words and helps you out. And so I think it's great.
Exactly. And then also too, like, it says, well, you've been told not to commit adultery, but I tell you not even to have a lustful eye. I think if we keep kind of playing with those sins and kind of, dancing around them, it will lead us to the actual mortal sin. So, it's just beautiful the way he set it up. And before I would be like, that's too strict. You can't even look and you can't. And it's like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about, keeping yourself pure. And, it is not easy. And I don't know that it's supposed to be easy. I mean, some things are easier now. I don't get as angry as I used to. I used to be very angry all the time, and things like that. So
do you find, I'm just curious, because I found this, I'm going to confession once a month, a reconciliation once a month. I go on the first Saturday because I'm following this Fatima thing that I learned about with Mother Mary, that she kind of recommends you go the first Saturday. And so I went, not yesterday, which I know you went yesterday, which I think is great. But do you find, number one is, how often do you go? And number two, do you find that, like, I found for a while, I kept repeating the same sins, and I keep showing up at the doorstep and saying the same thing over and over. And after a while, I'm like, I do not want to have to go back to him and say that same sin again. So I'm going to get rid of that sin. I'm going to purge it somehow. And I'm begging Jesus to help me purge that sin. And so do you find that it kind of like, it helps you because, you know, it's almost like having a coach who's kind of behind you saying, don't do it again. And this time you really don't want to show up there because you keep repeating the stuff.
Right. Yes. Actually, there's some that have been like completely removed, you know, certain sins that I was like so deep in. And it's, you know, after, like I said, 6 years ago, that confession I did. And you know, what was really cool, and I told you a little bit about this before, was that confession that I did it face to face with my priest. And he said, I know that I can give you some Hail Marys to say and things like that, but I have an idea. There's a retreat, you know, in an area that you can go to. And I think that'll really be healing for you. And it healed me. Like, I mean, I can't even explain how freeing. It was so freeing. I just felt so free. And I've never gone back to that sin. Like, I'm done with that. And then also with the anger thing, like I used to be a really angry person. And now, you know, I was so sensitive. You couldn't tell me anything. And I'd get so mad. And now it's like, you can tell me stuff and it just kind of right off. There's a couple other ones that I still struggle with. You know, I like food a little bit too much, but then what I'll do is I'm like, well, don't buy a thing of ice cream if you know you're just going to, you know, eat the whole thing in like 3 days. 3, 1, 2. Yeah. Anyways, but that's the kind of thing. And it does hold me accountable.
Yeah.
You know.
So
great. How often I go, the main thing for me is to go during, you know, like Advent, Lent. But you know, if I've been really struggling with something, I'll go. But I heard you on the stream the other day and I was like, you know what, once a month is pretty good, you know, to do that. But I really contemplate what I was watching a video with Father Mike Schmidt, and he was saying, well, a good guideline is to go through the 10 Commandments. Have you done any of those? And that's what I was thinking about, the Beatitudes, and afterwards, you know, going through the list of, you know, being angry with your brother or having a lustful eye, and just kind of, have I had any of those type of sins that I need to, you know, confess? And, but I like to really, you know, contemplate it and I think about it this way. Not only do I feel better, but it gets me prepared for, you know, the life hereafter. And it also strengthens me to help other people, you know, and when they talk to me about certain things they're struggling through, I listen now, and I don't just kind of be like, well, yeah, but I listen and try to, you know, give them, what would a good Christian Catholic woman, you know, say in this regard? But yeah.
That's a great attitude. It's just like how, and that's just like when you said a little while ago, you were worried about Jesus' forgiveness. And I remember when Jesus said you had to forgive people 70 times 7, and then you think about it, this is God talking. Imagine how many times he's had to forgive the world. Like somebody was saying, what if you commit 2 venial sins a day and you've got 7+ billion people on the world? Look at all the forgiveness coming out of him. And so you think he can't, you know, of course and I heard somebody say this about Judas. You know, you got Judas Iscariot, and at the very end of his life, he went in, you know, Jesus is kind of like, you know, you're doing this to me. You betray me with a kiss. And it wasn't that Jesus was saying, you're definitely gone. You know, Judas could have said, I repent, I'm so sorry, and all this kind of stuff. But instead he took it upon himself to go end his life. And I mean, it's such a shame because Jesus's love is there. He is setting the standard for forgiveness.
You're absolutely right. You know, I've thought about that. And well, we know suicide is, you know, prevalent now. I mean, it's terrible to have that much sorrow and that much feeling that there's no forgiveness or there's no reason to be here anymore. Life is a gift. And see, that breaks my heart, you know, because there is so much of God is love. That's all I can think about. And it's hard, you know, because I do know people that have taken their lives, and
I do too.
You know, if they only could have this good, beautiful, you know, Jesus, the love, and feel it. And the sacraments, I just believe they help us so much. And, I think, we really need to talk more about them. And, they're biblical too, because I'll hear a lot of people say, well, they're not biblical, and they are. I just don't know enough scripture right now to show. I do know, some of them, but there's a background for everything. And, it's just, there's no reason for any of us to feel that bad that, we don't feel like we can go to Jesus, or we can go to confession, or we can take the sacrament, or the Holy Communion. But yeah, it is. And there's a lot of people that they don't feel, and a lot of us are secular now too. And we don't believe, and there's not enough belief, and that's, scary too.
Yeah.
So.
That's the other scary thing. But I want to go back to reconciliation in a way, because I'm just thinking about, again, giving people hope and letting them know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm wondering, when you said you were looking through different faiths and that kind of thing, and then you met your husband, have you had any, feel like you have any, do you feel when you read the Bible, or is there some time when you feel like you're closer to Jesus, or the closest to Jesus, when your prayers might be most efficacious? Is there a time when
Mass, of course, Mass, but also too, there was a church that I was going to, the same priest that had told me, let's go on this retreat, this will be helpful. He also taught a group of us how to do Lectio Divina. And that's speaking of that, when I used to read the Bible, it was so mysterious. I'm like, what on earth does that mean? But with practices like Lectio Divina, where you do you read it, and then you contemplate, and you really take it to heart. It's almost like the words really spoke to me and came alive. And anytime that I want to talk about the Bible or the sacraments or something, I just open up and say, God, I am your servant. I am your instrument, and try to do it really humbly. I'm not an expert on anything. And I do feel close. I feel close to God right now, talking to another Christian. And
two are gathered in my name, I am there, right?
Amen.
We are gathered in my name.
That's right.
I was wondering, now I know you said you listen to Mike Schmitz, and I listen to Mike Schmitz too. And I also, there's a guy called Father John Brown, and I'm trying to get him on my channel, because he was in my chat last night, and he's been on my channel before. So I'm really excited about that. But there's also I listen to all kinds of different fathers, and I'm just wondering, do you listen to any of the exorcist fathers, like Father Chad Ripperger or anybody like that?
I have, I have listened to them. That's not really my go-to topic, though. Kind of scary for me. I like Father Bishop Barron. I do to hear him a lot. But I have heard some of them. But hey, if you want to talk about that, I'm game.
Well, you know why I'm bringing that up is because they said that they said that the strongest thing that you can do, as a person, is to go confess your sins, because it wipes your slate clean, and the dark spirits know you by your sin. And so if you go and you get you get a clean slate, then they can't know you. You're like, okay, there she is. There's the liar. And all of a sudden you confess that. Oh shoot, they don't remember. They forgot that you're a liar.
That's a good point. And I agree with that, because I'm telling you, not that I'm, completely perfect right now, but the sins are maybe smaller. And I do believe that a lot of the sins that I did, it felt evil almost, there was an evil presence. And I remember one of them in particular, I was talking to somebody, and they're like, if you get rid of this one sin, 7 more will come into your house if you don't. And I asked my priest about it, and he says, well, you got to fill that up with good things, with, do, the sacraments, do the, take the communion, fill your house with the good things. And that'll prevent the sins from re-entering. And I've been doing that. Can you hear my cat? I'm sorry. Can you hear my cat? He's right there. And I just want to.
I can. I don't mind that, though. It's cute.
Okay. So anyways.
I'm pay attention to me.
He does. He wants me to open the door. Sorry.
Oh, that's funny. Do you want to open the door? Do you want to let him out?
If you don't mind. If you don't mind,
no problem.
Okay, I'll be right back.
So if anyone listening here, I want to say thank you for coming in.
He's gone.
Mark B says, very good discussion. So that's always good. Yeah, your cat's very happy, probably going over to the little place to Get some food or something.
He's fine.
Yeah, no, cats are very low maintenance as far as I've heard.
Not my cat,
Oh,
but
no.
that's okay. That's another story.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, so we talked about reconciliation, and so if you were to give advice to your 15-year-old self or your 20-year-old self, is there any kind of advice you'd share today? Because I know I've got a lot of advice I'd give my 15-year-old self. Like, for example, don't leave the church. Why are you leaving the church? What would you give yourself as advice?
I would let my 15-year-old self know that I am worthy. I am worthy of love from Jesus. And yeah, don't leave the church, and get involved with, stay away from the bad people and get involved with the, because I did have friends when I was younger that were, that did, churchy things is what I call them. And I would say, the other people are going through their own struggles, and you don't need to get in the middle of that. Just, get involved with your church. And I know now there's a lot of, different activities and things for younger people to do. I think mostly go to confession, don't be afraid, and you are forgivable, and God does love you. That I think that would be the main thing. I don't know if I would have listened, but that's kind of what I would say. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think the other thing I was just thinking about, when people go to confession, I think some people think that they're going to be going into some room, sitting right face to face with a priest and looking the guy in the eye and saying, okay, here's what I've done. But it's not like that. So
No.
at least as my church, I just want to see what your church is like. But when I go in there, I kneel in front of like the screen, and I can see like the shape of hands behind kind of a really thick screen. But the Father, unless he knows my voice, which I don't think he does, doesn't know who I am. And so it's very comforting, because you are confessing and you're being yourself, because you don't have to hide because you're behind the screen. And so you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see him in the church. When he's giving me the Eucharist, he's going to look at me in the eye and say, ha ha, look what you.
The other thing is,
like that. If
you live in a big city, you can go to a different church where you don't know the priest. You can do that. When I go to confession now here, it's behind the screen. But when I was real comfortable with my church that I went to, when I do a face-to-face, or I'll say, can we, and they'll give you the option sometimes, but you can do the screen, and it's, and if they have the prayers right there now. I remember when I was little, I had to memorize the act of contrition and things like that, and they have it right there. So it's scary until you get there, and then it is so relieving. I still will cry. Like if I do some really good contemplation, if I really search my heart and not just think of the shallow things, but, the things that are really, causing damage to my soul and my spirit, like the anger and things like that. When I go in and I confess it is so relieving. I'll usually bawl, but it's not, it's not horrible. There's Kleenex there and everything. Yeah. So it's wonderful. Yeah,
I agree. And that's what they say when you get out of confession. I think, at least from what I know, when I've learned from those priests, like I listened to all those different fathers, but one of the things is when you get out, your prayers are supposed to be the strong, like they say, the prayers of a righteous person. Well, you just clean your plate. And so now you can go into the church, get the Eucharist, and your prayers are probably as strong as they can be. So that's the time to pray for your loved ones or anybody else that you think you could help.
Amen. That's right. So that's a good point. And yesterday, after I did confession, and I went to the chapel and I was praying, and I had some people that were on my mind, and I had just praying, and I'm going to pray for them every day. But yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I didn't think about that, but that's, just at that point, and I felt so close to God and being there, and it's so quiet, and so good. I'm glad. I'll do that. Maybe I will go to confession more often.
Yeah. That's kind of a deep thing, because you leave it and you think to yourself, like the other thing is I pray for, I don't know, what's your take on purgatory? It's funny because as a Catholic who was a revert, when I went to the Baptist faith and that, they didn't really seem to, some believe that you're kind of purged and clean, but it was instantaneous, because they always cite the thief on the cross as this instantaneous person who attained heaven within a day. But Jesus didn't go to heaven that day. So I'm like, well, heaven actually is on a different time scale than we're on. They're not on the linear time like we're on. And so you can't really say that, he had 42 days after that, 43 days or whatever it is. But I'm just wondering, do you ever pray or think about praying for anyone that you know who's died before you, who might be in purgatory?
I do. I have not even just loved ones, but I'll say prayers for just anybody in general that doesn't have somebody to pray for them. I'll just say anyone in purgatory, anyone here on earth, but there. And my take on purgatory, I remember when I was younger and I had seen some allusions to Dante's Inferno, and I had all that crazy in my head. And it's like, that's just literature. That's not really what the church, and nowhere has the church said that you're going to be, as far as I can tell, I haven't seen anywhere that that's, doctrine or dogma. And, by the way, I just learned, because dogma used to be to me like a bad word. It just means decree. That's all it is. And I learned that from, I think, William or Divine Mercy or one of them. But so it's just a decree. And being in purgatory for 30 days is not in there. It's not, it could be real quick, but I do know what is in the Bible is nothing impure will enter heaven and nothing unclean. So I mean,
like C.S. Lewis said, C.S. Lewis is an Anglican, or was an Anglican, but he said he wouldn't want to go in heaven all, like a dirty rag. You want to be fused with cleanliness. You want to be pure. And so I don't have a problem with somehow having some sort of a clearance process.
Right. I don't either. I'm not worried about it. I mean, if I got to be there, a while, well, I don't know. I don't want to. I would hope that, it would be quick. Maybe it's a long time and we don't feel it that way. Cause like you said, time is not like we think of time. There's no way it could be, so.
I think it's interesting to me because I've been studying Martin Luther lately, especially because as I said, I'm married to a Lutheran. So I started reading all these books about Martin Luther, but it's interesting because the Catholics brought the 73 books of the Bible, including Second Maccabees, which makes purgatory pretty explicit. Yeah. And then because they don't agree with his doctrine, he relegated them to a different part of the Bible he was making. And then the other Protestants kind of got into that and ended up pushing all those books out of there. And they're like, well, the reason we don't have these 7 books is because they go against doctrine. Well, they go against the doctrine that you created because you push the books out of there that have the doctrine in them. It's circular. Yeah.
Well, I think that there's also like not illusions, but what is it? Like there's the theology's there. It's there, and that's why it kind of, when I watch these debates, it's like, well, they're like, you got to flip flop and go here and go there. But that's not true. It's there. You have to take it in context. But you're right. That was removed, the Maccabees. And that's another thing, because I don't know a whole lot about the background of it. I'm learning,
I am too.
So, and that's the thing too. That's another reason why I changed my name to Everyday Catholic, because I'm just a regular person that's trying to learn. And, but I did do a series. I'm going to say William Albright again. He has a whole series on his Patreon, and I learned that, I don't want to go too much into it because I don't know it real strong, but there's a whole course that he does where it shows how the Jewish people, practice, and that's from Maccabees. So it's pretty neat, prayer for the ones in purgatory and so no, I think that's a doctrine and that's actually one thing I like about the Catholic Church. Like you mentioned earlier with the catechism, I like the fact that if I have a question about something that's sort of a major issue, I can go to the catechism and find the church's answer. And I like that because I used to spend a ton of time watching debates on things like once saved, always saved, and all these, and everyone's got their different point of view. And I thought to myself, well, we need a standard. That's how I used to think as a Baptist. And I would encounter these atheists online, and they would say stuff like, well, you can't get yourself, until you Christians figure out your doctrines and everything else, and there's 40,000 different denominations, I am not going to be a Christian. And I used to think, oh, that's so, so he's right. He's totally right. And then I rediscovered the Catholic Church. I thought, oh, well, they actually kind of have their act together here. They've got it all spelled out, and we could just go and look up the catechism. And I kind of like that. Yeah, I agree. Also too, Well, with atheists, I pray because I have a very big soft spot for people that have like they'll tell me, oh, you believe in the purple spaghetti monster or whatever they say, or your fairy tale, God. And it breaks my heart. So I'm not strong enough in the faith to, really go into doctrine with them. So I pray for them. But there was one thing you were talking about, like I can't remember. I lost my train of thought, but you had said something. I think I need to move on to it. I can't remember.
No, is it about the different denominations or?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I tried to, like, I took a challenge. I was like, because somebody in one of the chats, they're like, well, it's just so clear in the Bible. You need to just read the Bible. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to pick one. And I just started reading it. And I'm like, well, if I didn't know anything that I know now, if I didn't have any guidance, I would have no idea what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's, they always say, well, we follow tradition, but everybody kind of does, because how do you know who St. Paul is, or how do you know who Sosthenes is, or, who's this church and what God are you talking about? Because if you don't have some sort of teaching that you learn from what Christianity had, the whole Old Testament. So, right, there's some background there, and there's some theology that's been, so, I'm grateful that I have catechism. I have other people like yourself to talk to. And if I don't know something, I can talk to somebody that knows more about it. And I'm not all alone, just me and my Bible, which I think it's fine, but I don't think you get the fullness of it. And I think there's a lot of confusion when you try to, but yeah. So,
well, that's where all those splits come in. And so you've got, I disagree with you. I'm going to break away from the church, and then people break away and break away and break away. And then it gets, it's unfortunate actually, but it's kind of a natural thing that you would expect in the United States, because it's funny. I've seen these studies where we're number one in individualism in the world. And I think Protestantism and individualism sort of correlate. It's like the Protestant is kind of like, okay, you've got the pastor up on the stage. He's like the sage on the stage, and he's got 40 minutes of everyone's time, and he's up there kind of a show. And if you've gone to some of those churches, they don't even have any sort of an altar. Instead, they've got lights and action, and everyone's singing. It's like you're at a rock concert. And it's so different than the Catholic Church. I mean, I was just blown away when I went to this one Protestant church recently. I went to watch this conference with a bunch of Protestants, and I thought, but this is what it fits in with U.S. culture very well.
We want to be entertained. And I know there's been a lot of buzz on YouTube and like X and all of that, where they're talking about, true worship versus, I think that I have gone to churches like that, and, I've had people speak in tongues next to me. And so, and I'm not going to diss anybody, because we're all on different planes here. And, but we have the whole thing. I mean, there's, we have the homily, and then we take the sacrament, the Eucharist. And, but yeah, when I went to the different Christian churches, I didn't feel it. I just didn't. And, I felt lost and confused. And that's why I went into like the new agey stuff, because I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be more spiritual. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't, what are they saying now, that it's like a TED Talk or something, like the different Protestant? And
some are, yeah.
Yeah. And I went to like one or two, so I don't really have a lot of experience with that, but I think, at some point everybody's on their own path, but I do think you get the fullness of the faith in the Catholic Church. I really, truly believe that. And if we just kind of, not be so, not only judgmental, but judging ourselves or the church, different things like that. But yeah, I mean, this is where the fullness is. I can't, that's what I believe. I can't express it enough. This is, we got everything, and, the baptism, we got the confirmation, the Eucharist, matrimony. I mean, it's all right here. It's available for everybody. So yeah.
And they're always right on things. It's like they're right about the pro-life stuff. They're right about matrimony. They're right
Yeah.
about the value of the family. They're right about
Yes.
talking about increasing families and building, go forth and multiply. I mean, everything that the Catholic Church for thousands of
Yeah.
years has been saying is right. That's the thing. It's like these other faiths come in there like Seventh-day Adventists and they actually have hospitals where they're giving, I don't want to say the A word, but they're giving, killing babies and stuff like that and justifying it somehow. And it's just the Catholic Church they've been rock solid about that, which I love.
Yeah. And I think that things like that are secular, like, the A word, so we don't get like, demonetized or whatever. That's and I know people, like, I don't think a lot of people will admit it, but that's very, very destructive to ourselves. First of all, we're killing an innocent, but it is destructive for the person that has it done too.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that, whether people want to admit it or not, it is. And then, so yeah, you're right. The church has been right about that, and it's going to stick by it. And I was going to bring up that
we used to say fan call. How did you trace me here?
Fan. I don't know about that. It's my daughter. I can't. Now I lost my train of thought. But anyways,
it's just like the church has always been right about certain things. And that's, I definitely think, and it was interesting because at Fatima, Mother Mary warned Lucia and the other two children. She said at the end of, the last battle is going to be over the family. Satan is going to try to destroy families.
Now I remember. I remember. Today. Yes. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. When I was in one of the chats, and one of the Catholic, I guess he's an apologist, which, he went on and he was saying the whole thing is about family, Adam and Eve, and how, the two, they ate from the forbidden tree, and that just kind of destroyed the family. And we just been kind of going through it. And family is so important, it's what keeps life going, it's who comforts us when we're not, when we feel like we need to be comforted. And I think the devil is like happy when he sees a divorce or a destroyed family, or a daughter or son not talking to a parent, or a parent neglecting their children. He is happy, he's ecstatic about that, and it's sad.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's when he steps in. And it's like when we were talking about atheists a little bit before, I saw some book once that said something like a lot of the atheists had one or more parents who were just sort of not there, or they weren't friendly, they were terrible parents or something like that. So they can't imagine having a father in heaven who could be loving, because maybe their father on earth has been terrible. And so that's why I have to say, at first, when I encountered a bunch of atheists, like back in 2015, 2016 on Twitter, I wasn't exactly friendly. I wasn't, I didn't handle that the way I should have. But looking back on it now, I have a lot more empathy for them, because I realize maybe they're struggling with stuff that I know nothing about.
I couldn't agree more, because I wasn't a perfect parent. And, think about it. My kids are in their 30s, and I really got back into the faith 6 years ago. So I wasn't the best mother. So I think that's why we got to heal, and the family, we do, the whole country, the whole world does. Family is so important. Children shouldn't feel like, and I love what you said right now about how, if my own parent didn't love me, how can a father in heaven love me? That is, man, that really got me in my heart right there. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you feel sorry for. I mean, I think about that. I've met a few of them, and I hear their stories, and sometimes you hear about this distant father, usually it's a father actually. And so that's the sad thing. And a lot of times it's males who happen to be the atheists, they're the ones kind of leading. And a lot of the females are the ones who are leading them back to the church. And so that's the funny thing. So what brought you when you were, you said you have a couple of older kids. Are they Christians? Do they believe in Christianity? Are they kind of feeling their way out there right now? Kind of how you were maybe at the.
Yeah, well, they are not. I have one child who is not really practicing anything, but and she's my grandchildren. She's, you know, a mother.
Oh, wow.
Really
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I have 3 grandchildren. The really good thing is that their other grandmother she is, you know, a Christian, and she'll take them to church, and I'll take them to church too. But the 2 little ones I haven't, but my older grandson I have. And then I have another daughter who is very, she does go to church, but it's one of the evangelicals and, you know, like that. And she's told me flat out, she's like, Catholic church is boring. And I don't think so. I'm like, you're missing out, man. It's not.
But I used to be like that. I used to be exactly like her. When I came into
Yeah.
the Evangelical Baptist Church, I was trying to sell all my Catholic friends. I'm like, oh, Catholic church is so solemn and boring. And I would say all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, and then, you know, I go into this church and the music's beautiful. And then I realized now, looking back on it, I'm like, the church was really good with getting into my emotional state, and really good at making me feel like really warm and fuzzy and happy and loving to Jesus. And I love Jesus. And but then it was like as I matured, I don't want to say this is not at all a knock on my evangelical friends and everybody, but as I matured, I felt like I needed more. There's like I was studying all this stuff, and I felt like I'm not, there's questions that can't be answered in the evangelical church. So my first step was to look at Mother Mary and to see, was she a perpetual virgin? Like, I needed to know. So,
right. Because that does keep a lot of people away. They're like, that's weird. You know, why are they praying to the dead? No, well, you know, if we're in Christ, we're alive, and we're fully alive and more righteous. Like we were talking about, you know, after a good confession, that our prayers would be more powerful. Well, think about the saints in heaven. How powerful will those prayers be? I wanted to go back though about, you know, my one daughter who's going to evangelical. I'm just glad she's going to church. You know, I would pray that her, and, you know, that she comes back to the fullness of the faith, and my other daughter too. But I'm glad that she is, and, you know, starting to love herself more. And so, yeah, but yeah,
that's
so
perfect.
I didn't raise my children in the church at all. So,
well, see, that's how I'm kind of like that too, because it was my son years ago. He convinced me to go into church, and we started testing all these churches, and that's where I wandered into the Baptist church. So my kids have had all these different faiths now. They were Lutheran, they were baptized Lutheran, they went to Baptist. Now they sometimes come with me to the Catholic church. So that's my bad. I have them all over the place. So I'm kind of like, as long as you land somewhere with Jesus, I know that he'll figure out a way for you to get to him ultimately. So
right. And I felt, this is another thing, confession healed me on, because I felt horrible about that. You know, at that certain point, I was like, you know, my children are the way they are because I didn't guide them or lead them. I didn't give them, you know, it was like that, all willy-nilly, and, you know, oh, just believe, be a good person, and that. And I had to forgive myself. So that is something else I really had to work on, and forgive myself, so that I could be able to help other people when they're ready to, you know, get there, or if they need to forgive themselves even. So,
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us have those little interior things where we think, oh, gosh, I could have been better that way, or could have been, you know what, though, I think they always say, don't look back, just keep looking ahead. You know, Jesus isn't there scorning you. He's there to try to help you. He's carrying you through you ever hear that footprints in the sand? Have you ever heard that?
Oh, yes. My mom, at one particular point in her life, was going through something really rough, and she went and bought that poster and put it up on the wall. And I remember reading that, and it's like, I was all alone, but no, Jesus was carrying you. I remember.
I love that. I love that. So, Gina, is there I know we talked about going about an hour, and I've just been having a great time talking to you. And I love your story and your background. And I'm very honored that I'm the first channel that you've come on. So I'm sure people will be contacting you to get you to come on their channel, because it's exciting to talk about a fellow Catholic and fellow experiences. And so are you working on, I mean, do you have anything in mind, like maybe setting up your own channel at some point, or is there any, are you on Instagram, or I know I'm not, but are you on Twitter?
Not really. Right now I'm just on YouTube, and I do want to go more into the sacraments. You know, I really want to really understand it to where I can articulate to other people, because they are so healing. And I like the title that you titled this, how the sacraments can bring you closer to Jesus. because they can. And I want to be able to, help people to, not just with my emotions and feelings and say, wow, I just feel so great, but with some real background, some real Bible background, some theology, because there's so much of that in the church. It's a beautiful, but my husband and I were talking about it, and we're like, yeah, we can collaborate. We could do something, to get that out there. And I'd like to really go in depth with each sacrament, because they're really important. And, it just is that's the fullness of the faith. That's what it is. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I really don't do a whole lot because, obviously I work and things like that, but there's always time. There's always time to, I've been praying and asking God, please guide me and lead me. I'm your servant, and open up my heart and get rid of my, nervousness and self-consciousness. That's all ego. And I think that's the devil too, talking to me. And I really just need to put all my faith in God and let him guide me and lead me through this whole journey.
I can't, accentuate enough the fact that how important reconciliation is, like you said, because if you believe in heaven, hell, you believe there's a middle point, like a purgatory, and you don't want to spend as much time in purgatory, and you want to clean your plate.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense to go and ask for forgiveness, and then realize, okay, now I've got a clean plate. Like I can go out now and say some really hearty prayers. And so,
yes. Yeah. Every single one, but yeah, that's the one that really got me back on a good footing. And I started getting confidence and feeling the love of God. And, I agree with that, I never really thought about it. Will it keep me out of purgatory? But my whole thing was, what is, really causing me to just kind of sin and be angry, and that's how it heals me. And also, just to feel the closeness of God and Jesus, and just kind of, have it all right there. But now that you bring it up, I like with the purgatory thing, I think I'm going to go more.
I know. Well, I guess I shouldn't say it totally keeps you out of purgatory, but I know that it helps because it builds you. It makes you not want to sin it. You're very conscious of what you do, you say.
Yeah. And not in a bad way, but in a way that is, it's not a bad feeling. It's a more like, I have more empathy for other people. I have more empathy for myself, but I have more empathy for other people, just because I know I used to be so judgmental, and I was just like up to here in my sins. And now I have empathy. And when somebody is doing something or against me or whatever, I pray for them. And I think that reconciliation, confession, all of that just it brings it right here. It's like, you are a sinner. I am a sinner, and so yeah, it's a great sacrament. It's my favorite sacrament, actually. Well, after the Holy Communion, but confession is. So yeah,
what do you say? You pray for other people who might be doing things against you. It's like love covers a multitude of sins.
Amen. Exactly.
Beautiful to do. Yeah. So, well, great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the channel today. I very much enjoyed it. And so,
thank you for having me on. I was very flattered when you asked me, and I don't know what moved you to ask me, but I'm like, that's fine. Let's do it. And first I was nervous, and I was going to be like, yeah, I don't think I'm ready to do this, but why not? I know enough about the faith, and that I can speak on the sacraments, and, I'm ready to, I'm there for people if they have questions, and I might not have the answer, but like you said, we have the church, and we have our priest, and, so we have a whole family, a whole community of answers, and, I'm not dissing anything else, but come on home if you're not there.
Yeah. Well, that was funny. I listened to this guy called Eddie Trask, and he's got this, I went on his channel once, and he has a Catholic recon, and it's like Catholic, reverts. And so I think you might've said something that struck me on the comment that you said to me. And that's one of the things I love talking to people who've come back, because I love finding, I feel like if you're a weak Catholic, you end up going to the Protestant faith. And then as you become a stronger Protestant, you have to go back to the Catholic faith. I didn't make that up. Somebody else did.
Yes. No, I understand, because I was a weak Catholic, and I went away and I dibble dabbled here and there. And, as I came back to the church, and I wasn't fully there, and I was still, very what do they say? You're on milk,
Yeah.
but the more I practice, and that's the thing, I'm a practicing Catholic, it's every day. Every day is Jesus. I wake up with prayers. I pray with my husband. I don't watch, like I used to watch lots of ID channel and things like that, which is not bad, but you're watching people that are in sin. I'd rather watch things more holy. And it's not that it's just what interests me, because, I want to learn and I want to be closer to God. And I'm able to, help people when they have answers. So yeah, I'm becoming a stronger Catholic, and, I'm grateful for that.
That's what they say. Jesus is building saints. And so that's the goal. We all want to end up as much of a saint as possible. I know I always think, like, you'd laugh if you saw me 20 years ago, like, please, like that one. But I do feel like you make yourself a little bit better every
Same. I'm pretty sure people that knew me 20 years ago would be like, what? No, I was not. And also too, doesn't St. Paul say somewhere that we're all called to be saints? You know, I love the saints. I like reading about them. So
which one's your patron saint?
Saint Monica. That's Saint Augustine's mother. So
oh wow.
Yeah. Well, when I got my confirmation, I really didn't know where to go with it. And my sister's name is Monica. So I was like, well, there you go. I'll go there.
That's how I chose mine too. I'm St. Catherine of Siena. It was because my name's Stephanie Jean, and my mom's Jean, and my mom's one sister, Stephanie, her second sister's Catherine. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pick a name, Catherine, so I can be named after all of my moms,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So it's like the easy thing. Well, I appreciate you coming, and maybe you can come back sometime. We can talk about maybe something different,
Yeah. Or we could pick like a sacrament. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, we could also do a little bit of a debate review if you want. Like,
I love that.
Since you and I both watch these William Albrecht debates, we could maybe do a thing where we chat about a little portion of it or something. We
can do that. And also too, if, if you want to talk more about the sacraments, like go in depth in one or the other, we could do that. But yeah, I'm excited, but I do like the debate reviews. In fact, I binge watch those too.
I do too.
So yeah.
So that's a good idea. And maybe what we should do is plan out. I mean, I actually like this idea now I'm thinking about it. So maybe like the sacrament of the Eucharist, because that's, I bet you there's, there's some miracles. I've never really looked into it too much, but I know there's some miracles associated with the Eucharist. So it'd be cool for you and I, maybe over the next month, to kind of look at maybe some miracles with the Eucharist. And then when we come back together, we can share our stories.
I'm on board with that. That sounds like fun, actually. And it'll give me, some focus and direction on where, prayers and contemplation. And so for my Lectio Divina, just kind of, and I wanted to say this about that. It's not just the Bible. My priest taught me for Lectio Divina, you can read the church fathers and, do that. So that's another thing I want to go over, like a video. It doesn't have to, however, but just to kind of teach people, about it, because it's a really good way to pray. So yeah, I'm game. You let me know what you want to talk about and I'm there.
That's good. I will be emailing you then, and I'll try to set something up maybe about a month out or something. Thank you
so much. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
So everybody, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And just remember, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Thank you. So I'll end the stream.